good to set those hombres right, but that was just one mission. There will be another waiting for Todd when he wakes up tomorrow. Cigars aren't for everyone, so they tell me, but for each person on this blue ball who can light up and knows what he wants to light up. Countless other souls need cigar advice and information. That's what gets him up in the morning. That's what fuels his fire. That's what keeps him going out on those tough missions, those solitary quests, those cigar ops.
Wow. Hi, Todd Tappy at Cigar Ops. I want to thank Bourbon Dinners with Tim Stutler for that over-the-top spin-off episode. It was hilarious. You may be wondering what this show is about. It is about cigars, and I do cigar reviews. I review the cigars differently. I smoke 3 cigars as opposed to 1. And for lack of a better term, I call it the Triple Tappy. A cigar sometimes fits the different circumstances differently. Be it the time of day, where your body is and energy level is. I smoke 3 cigars because it allows me to smoke them in different scenarios and settings. You know, it can be with different drinks, drink pairings, weather conditions, or any other circumstances that you can think of that would affect the smoking and enjoyment of your cigar. And that is going to give you the fairest, the best chance to understand what a cigar is all about. Within the basic framework of the Triple Tappy, I use very basic and traditional evaluation criteria. On one hand, we look at the cigar itself, and we look at the construction of the cigar, how it looks, how it smells. We'll clip it, we'll do a dry draw, we'll see the body of the smoke, the strength of the flavor. The other half of the equation is the flavor. Some of the flavors jump out at me, but I refer to a flavor wheel to pick out some of the finer distinctions of the flavors and the nuances that I know some of you are looking for. As you may have picked up from the trailer, we at Cigar Ops like oddball characters, and being history buffs, from time to time you'll see guests, Mark Twain, Winston Churchill, Ulysses S. Grant, people of this sort.
But those guys are all dead.
That's Aldo Torrego.
In the control booth.
Oh, Aldo Torrego in the control booth. We don't really have a control booth, but it looks cool, right? What'd you say, Aldo?
U.S. Grant and all those other guys have been dead a long time.
But they were alive once, and they were real flesh and blood characters. And from time to time, we will have dead fictional characters as guests.
Yeah, okay. Don't you have any living guests planned?
Sure, why not? Well, that's it for the introductory stuff. Now let's get right into our first cigar review. This cigar review was inspired by my father, who started smoking cigars in the Marine Corps as a young man, the same as I did. And he started smoking cheap cigars, drugstore cigars, Swisher Sweets, Anthony and Cleopatra, White Owl, cigars of this nature. And eventually he shifted into smoking much finer cigars. And the first cigar I'm reviewing is one of those finer cigars that he enjoyed so much. And it's the Punch Clasico. Every time he smoked it, you knew it. He was smoking a Punch cigar.
That doesn't look like a Classico, Todd.
Very astute, Aldo. I must confess, I got a little carried away, and after smoking the 3 Classicos, I was wondering how it compared with the other cigars that were similar in the Punch line. And I had these 3-gram puros hanging out in my humidor, and they were the same size and shape and look very similar. So this is in fact a gram puro.
So how many cigars did you smoke for this review?
For this review, I've actually smoked 6 cigars.
A sextuple tappy?
This is a sextuple tappy, 2 for the price of 1. The shoulder and cap are holding up well after being cut. The dry draw shows that the draw is going to be just fine. So this is ready to be lit up. We toast them first. If I do anything different, so I keep the flame on the cigar longer than most people to be thorough. And if you don't have one of these Alec Bradley, what I call a Bunsen burner, you're missing out. It's got the first puffs, a little bit of strong flavor. So I'm going to set this down, let it cool down a little bit. And that's a perfect time to pour some of this bourbon. They're going to hold up pretty well to this bourbon.
What are you drinking there, Todd?
This is Cooper's Craft. It's a straightforward bourbon. A little bit of sweetness, which I love, and that bite to it. It's got that good bourbon bite. And the bourbon has a nice backstory to it that links in with its name, Cooper's Craft. And they're reportedly the only ones that make their own barrels. So they char them, age the bourbon in the barrels, and then, of course, charcoal filter it. And that's where you end up with this good basic Kentucky bourbon. Something that's going to pair well with this full flavored but medium to mild strength cigar.
Did you drink bourbon with the other 5 cigars?
I did not. With the Classicos, the first one I smoked was a morning cigar. So I drank a monster drink with that. And the second one I smoked with water at a lunchtime. And then there were 3 others. One of those I smoked with coffee during a teleconference. And one of them I smoked with bourbon during also a teleconference with Smoking Friends, our weekly smoking, which due to COVID we do on teleconference instead of in person. Okay, to summarize the pairings, I definitely prefer the Classico with a mild drink, a water, or maybe a coffee, because I love the robust flavors of a punch and just knowing I'm smoking a punch and tasting those flavors. The 3 country blend, that beautiful Sumatra, Ecuador wrapper. I would recommend if you want to drink with bourbon, maybe stick to a straightforward one that maybe has a little sweetness. I just suspect that that will pair better than, the stronger bourbons. This is one of the legacy brands. There was an old Cuban brand, when the embargo started, they started making cigars in Honduras or wherever they started making them. This cigar, the Gran Puro, and more so just ever so slightly, the Classicos, they're so consistent. They taste the same as the cigars I smoked with my father when he was still alive 10 years ago. It's amazing. This is a little faux pas, but let me say this much. I know that you viewers like to see how long the ash will go. Well, you just saw how long it will go before it falls off. Yeah. So Aldo, what do you think of these puros? Aldo, you there?
You promised I could play the Triple Tappy clips. Rip a Triple Tappy, Todd.
Well, all right then. As I was smoking the Classicos, I was alert to notice flavor changes between the first third, the second third, and the third third. And notably, the flavors stayed consistent. The kind of nuts, the vanilla, and the robust, creamy flavor. If anything, the Classico, I would say, is ever so slightly more multi-dimensional than the Gran Puro, and maybe a little smoother. And it stayed so consistent to the point that I smoked all of the cigars down to the nub. This is a cigar that does not get bitter or extremely stronger as it smokes down to the end. And the Gran Puros smoked in a similar fashion. They're distinguished from the Classicos in the last third of the cigar, and especially as it gets down to the nub, because the cigar will become a little more bitter or harsh, and you're going to pick up some flavors of the dark chocolate or the coffee. It just strengthens in that way. I mentioned the flavor wheel, and we're showing you the flavor wheel from Best Cigar Prices. They're a seller of cigars. We have the link below. The Classico, it has a caramel flavor, which you'll find in the other flavors section. And it has a nutty flavor, but I couldn't really tell you if it has more cashews or almonds or any of the others. We're down to the last third, as you can see. I have over an inch of ash, which is, you'll remember our faux pas in the first one, it actually fell off at this point. This one's holding steady. Look, it's down to the nub, and it's a little dry, and this is where most people would just put it down. No. Well, down to the bitter end. But it's really not a bitter end, because this reminds me of my father. Smoking punch cigars with my father. Watching my father smoke punch cigars before I was old enough to smoke. I want to thank you for joining me with this initial episode of Cigar Operations. Aldo, charge your glass. I want to offer a toast to my father, Jerry Tappy. Semper Fi.
Semper Fidelis.